Welcome back to Heightscast, the podcast of the Heights School. This is Rich Moss with you from the campus of the Heights in Potomac, Maryland. We are here to talk about the education and the formation of young men fully alive in the liberal arts tradition. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for continuing to share our mission and our vision of education with your friends. We are very, very grateful. Before we introduce this week's guest, just a quick reminder to our friends here in the D.C. area who might be considering the Heights as a partner in the education of their boy. Our open house this fall takes place October the 18th of 2025. So if you're listening to this in September or October of 2025, not in the future, do consider joining us for our fall open house. Should be a great day. It's the best possible opportunity to learn about our school, and hope to see you there. To learn more, register, visit heights.edu. In addition, we have a lot of upcoming events right now, October and November. We've got our Headmasters Lecture coming up in early October. Headmaster, I believe it's October the 4th?
October the 4th.
October the 4th, so it should be a great evening for Heights parents and friends of yours beyond the walls of our school. Visit heights.edu to learn more or register. October the 4th at 7 p.m., doors open. We also have our Fathers Conference for Heights dads and any other fathers of goodwill. We'd love to have you November 1 here on campus. And then finally, in mid-November, we will be hosting Convivium. This is our annual conference for teaching men. We would love to have you here. Thanks to the generosity of the Herzog Foundation. Room and board is on the house. Your transportation is the only thing you got to pick up. But if you can get here, I can assure you of a really, really good time with over 100 men from all of the United States who have devoted their lives to this teaching gig, which is a wonderful one. And so now we turn our attention from all those announcements. Thanks for bearing with me. And I'm delighted to welcome to Heightscast once again our headmaster, Mr. Alvaro de Vicente.
Great. Thank you, Rich.
And today we are going to talk about a piece you wrote on your Substack, Men in the Making, which I have to thank you on a personal level for, because it helps me and my household tremendously. But again, the Substack is Men in the Making, and this particular article that you wrote is 5 conversational temptations that mentors and parents commonly face. That is, I think it's the understatement of the century to say that it's kind of like this mild temptation,
right?
Like cookies from the cookie jar at midnight. It's like, no, this is so much more than that. It's such an easy thing. The kind of a lot of the points you highlight for us, it's so easy to fall into all of them. But let's begin even with the title. You say that, or in the first paragraph, you write that conversation is the main medium of mentoring. And that seems to me like a sentence that could just be sort of like a throwaway line. You're just teeing up the rest of the article. Right. But, and there's other things you could have used, like language or relationship. There's so many different words you could have used, but you use conversation. And I think that's there has to be more there than meets the eye. So why is it that conversation is the main medium of mentoring?
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes you write something that seems natural and common, and then you get feedback, as the one you're referring to, of how significant that word was, right? And I find it helpful because I've always thought about mentoring as a conversation, and it's only been through the feedback that it's pushed me to really think, why do I think that? Like, why is it so natural to me after many years of mentoring to refer to it as a conversation? And first, I guess, just to clarify, think about mentoring as a tutorial on living as a man in the case of mentoring boys, right? So mentoring not so much as teaching, mentoring not so much as telling somebody what to do, maybe guiding in some ways, but it's really a one-on-one guidance, encouragement, and accompaniment tutorial on helping a boy be a man. In that context, I think that the medium is conversation. And conversation, it refers to, I think, 3 aspects of the way communication happens in mentoring. One is the content. And in a conversation, the content is provided by both parties, not by one. Right? And a lecture is 100% by the lecturer. In a class, depending on how the class is conducted, is mostly by the professor, the teacher. In a conversation, it's a 50-50. And both parties, assuming that there's only 2, like in this case, have a burden to carry this. Therefore, that indicates that mentoring is not about my telling the mentee what he should do or what he shouldn't do. It's not by my just asking question after question after question after question. Right? It's not telling him stories. It's really about trying to create that conversation, to try to provoke the mentee, the young person, to also carry some of the burden. And obviously, that's going to necessitate some questions, and it's going to necessitate some prompting. But that's the goal. As a result, the mode, not only the content, but the mode is more relaxed. It's more open. Right? It's not an interrogation. It's not an exam. Right? Remember that when talking about young people, they're very used to being interrogated. Sometimes by parents, sometimes by teachers, right? Administrators. They're used to being tested and examined. Depending on the home dynamics, they may not be used to conversation, other than with their friends, and less so as conversations happen online more than in person. So the mode should be relaxed in a conversation. That is, that in some ways it doesn't matter what you say, right? That the mentee realizes it doesn't matter what you say. You can take things back. Right, you don't get points off because of giving the wrong answer at the beginning, right, or using the wrong term. You can say something that is silly. It's not going to go beyond, the two of you. That provides a relaxation. Like, you can speak freely, and actually, it may be one of the few places, one of the few scenarios in which that boy can actually speak freely. That is, there are no negative consequences to what he says. Right, and that should provide a very relaxing mode for him, and at the same time, it's a conversation because, as opposed to just idle chatter, the idea of conversation is that it creates a bond between the conversants, right? The people conversing. It creates a bond. There's a greater intimacy. Because of that conversation, we get to know the other person, and the person get to know us. Not just because we talk about ourselves or the boy talks about himself, but just the way they talk about things, what matters to them, right? If you ask a boy, how was your weekend? What was the best thing? Well, it doesn't matter what the answer, but what the answer may be indicative of what they really like, right? And what things they don't like. So there's some good knowledge that is gained through that conversation, as opposed to what could otherwise happen if it's not so much a conversation where, as a mentor, I may go in with my biases of what I need to tell this boy because he's a boy, as opposed to being more open to first listening and understanding specifically what drives this kid, or what's important to this kid, or in what ways is this kid unique from all the other boys his age. So I think all that, and maybe it is a lot, but I think all that is contained in the term conversation, as opposed to any other term that I could have used.
That's really helpful. And so as we're entering that conversation with these young people, let me parenthetical here. This doesn't just apply to teachers, right? I mean, this is something that's helpful to parents too.
Yeah, I think, okay. I mean, obviously teachers in a mentoring situation, but it could be coaches in a mentoring situation. It could be a church leader, a youth group leader in a mentoring situation. Absolutely a parent who is always in a mentoring situation, right? Parents are like teachers, but even more so. Because as a parent, you can never put your mentoring mode outside of the relationship with your kids, right? You're always mentoring. Occasionally, every parent could be a bad mentor, right? Like, oh my gosh, I missed that. Like, I can't believe I didn't do that, or I just didn't show up, right? Yeah. I mean, so occasionally could do that, but you cannot not be a mentor, right? Just the same way that you cannot not be the dad or the mom. Right. You can be really good, very good, fantastic, need improvement sometimes, but you're always there. So absolutely, mentor applies to every parent and applies to every adult that is dealing with students in any type of relationship, really.
That's, again, helpful. And so I would like to go to there's 5 temptations that you highlight for us in the Substack. I'd like to go to the second one right at the gate. Temptation number 2: thinking meaningful conversations must be filled with meaningful content. And boy, if this isn't the one that, I think for us, particularly in this area where, many of us are wonderfully busy doing very good things with great intentions. I think of DC as a magnanimous city. And so we're doing our best to do our part. And we'll just leave it there. But I think there's some ways that this instinct towards instant gratification has, again, it's not just kind of like the cookie in the cookie jar or the quick scroll on Instagram. It's also kind of like, no, I know what I want, and I want this right now. And it's tricky when the thing that you want right now is a good thing.
Right.
And when that good thing is meaningful conversation. And so like,
Right.
you come home or whatever else and you're like, all right, I'm praying, I'm available, I've thought about this, like, son, sit, we're gonna have a meaningful conversation right now. Let's have it out or whatever else. And you really caution us to slow way down, and avoid this idea that, again, I'll quote, meaningful conversations must be filled with meaningful content. And so to flip that into a negative,
Right.
how can a conversation lacking in meaningful content possibly be meaningful at all? Like, what does that look like?
No, that's exactly right. Am I advocating for wasteful conversations?
Yeah, exactly,
right?
exactly.
Go ahead and just blabber.
Yeah.
Say nothing.
Yeah.
Just get some words out in no particular order and see what happens.
Fill the space.
Shake it up.
Totally.
That's a great question. So a couple thoughts. One is the warning, I think, is that we tend to be fixers. Right? We tend to be fixers. We at work, we see a problem, we look for a solution, we apply the solution to the problem.
Yeah.
In our personal lives, it's so hard for us not to try to do that. And yes, we can help, but you just can't fix people. Right? The child is not a car that you can open the hood and rewire a couple of things and you go, there we go, and now you're good to go. Mm-hmm. Even if I believe that the rewiring is not through my hands, but through my words. Like, it just doesn't work that way, right? The boy is not a problem to be fixed. His actions are not manifestations of problems that have to be solved or fixed. And that's what I mean, slow down, because I think that very often when we have what we think to be meaningful conversations are solutions to fix a problem. And I've thought about the right wording, and I'm going to get it out so I fix it once and for all, that it never happens again. And I think it is the wrong approach, number one. Number two, even if it was the right approach, I don't think it's a very effective approach, in that we may think that what we're saying is truly meaningful, but it's not what we say, it's what they hear. And what they hear is very much filtered by the scene, the relationship, right? The moment that we say, sit here, I got to talk to you, there is already a defensiveness on that boy, because he knows he's coming into the courtroom. And you don't go into the courtroom and hang out with the people, right? You don't hang out with the jury and talk about what a great time you had over the weekend. Like, you don't do that. You watch everything that you say, and you don't say what you don't need to say. And you're careful about saying even what you need to say, right? And you hear everything somewhat negatively. So I think that's also a consideration, that even if children were problems to be fixed, I'm not sure that the intentionally meaningful conversation is the effective way to do it. And I'm gonna provide an exception to that when I think that a prepared, meaningful conversation works. But before doing that, I just remember a drawing that I saw a couple of weeks ago, and it was a dad and a boy. They seemed to be about 9 or 10, both of them sitting on a park bench. And the drawing had, sort of the bubble thoughts that each one was having. And the dad's bubble is filled with a new house, fixing the car, a vacation, work, right? All those things. And the boy's bubble is filled with the face of his dad, right there. And they're not talking. And you see the dad has a furrowed brow. He's concerned. The boy has a smile. And the point is, yeah, even the dad is concerned about all these things and maybe has all kinds of meaningful conversations in his mind. The boy just happened to be there with dad. That's the victory for the boy. So sometimes we think, man, I gotta have this meaningful conversation, when in reality it's like, maybe we should just go out for ice cream and talk about the Commanders or the Caps or talk about the weather, whatever. Maybe that's what you should do. And all it takes is just one word at the end after the ice cream was saying, hey, son, keep helping mom. She really appreciates it. Maybe that just one sentence is going to get that boy to be much more helpful around the house than a 10-minute conversation about how delinquent he's been in that area and how he has to grow up because now he's more mature and I count on you and all those things. The exception that I would present in terms of the meaningful conversations, I think there is space, there's a place for father-son, mother-daughter, mother-son, conversation at pivotal times in the child's growth. And pivotal because of where the child is or just because society tells us that there's a big deal. For instance, when a child's about to begin high school or perhaps when he's approaching graduation. But let's say when he's about to begin high school. Let's say that boy is 14. For the dad to say, hey, we're going to go, you and I, we're going to go for the weekend overnight. You choose what we're going to do. Tell me what you would enjoy doing on Saturday for most of the day. And then we're going to get a nice dinner, which, by the way, for a boy is like $10. Right? It's a good burger and fries. I mean, you're not going to spend a lot. We're going to get a nice dinner. And there are some things I want to talk with you about. So we're going to dedicate a couple hours after dinner to talk about those things. And in that conversation is, all right, son, now that you're 14, you're going to high school, I want to have a man-to-man conversation about my expectations of the kind of man that you're going to be. And you can talk about academics and being a good worker. You can talk about friendships. You can talk about treating women respectfully. You can talk about the faith. You can do that. That's once every so many years, maybe just once. And that is not fixing a problem. That is presenting a vision and conveying trust and conveying commitment to help you attain that vision. That, I think, is a setting for a meaningful conversation. And yes, you're going to prepare it. You're even going to tell the boy, we're going to do this. I've been thinking about this. Right? I've been thinking about this for months if you want to. I think that works. So I will accept that meaningful conversation, right? And even propose it as a good way to go. On a day by day, I think meaningful conversations are our attempts to fixing a problem quickly, and those two things just don't happen, right? We're not there to fix problems, and we can't do it quickly.
Yeah. That's interesting. As you're speaking, I'm kind of reflecting. We just read Peace Like a River as a faculty. I'm thinking about that father. I'm thinking about Atticus Finch. I'm thinking about the Ralph Moody in Little Britches. So many of these great dads, and there's just not many times where they up and give a sermon. It's all, sometimes they respond to moments, but their responses are typically very few words. And just the general paucity of their words makes them carry a whole lot of weight. So it's also like part of it seems like you want to keep your powder dry.
Yes.
When those times
exactly.
where you really, really do need to say something.
Remember in Peace Like a River, I think, at least to me, the most powerful statement that the father makes once, not giving away the story, but the family's going through a very difficult situation. Yeah. And one of the sons, and it seems like the whole thing is falling apart in terms of the family and where they're going through. And one after listening to a particularly piece of bad news, one of the sons asks the father, "What are we going to do?" And he says, "Persevere."
Yeah.
And he just had one word,
so
so powerful, right?
That's so
and it stuck with the kid, like persevere, like that's right. What we're going to do, just stick to it.
Yeah.
Do what we do, live our lives, be good people, like persevere. So I agree. I mean, that's a meaningful word.
Yeah.
Right? Much more than a meaningful conversation.
Yeah.
Right?
And he could have surrounded it with all sorts of, well, this, that, and other, but then it's not that the word isn't good, it's just kind of buried. And so, yeah, boy, you got to be purposeful about this, especially when language is so cheap and overabundant. But there's a sentence in this section that, again, I want to highlight. You say, within this same context, often we are going to shape them, i.e. our sons, daughters too, I suppose, through liking them more than by telling them what to do. A child is a young person who desperately wants to be liked, because to be liked is to be affirmed, and to be affirmed is to be seen as good, which is to be loved. Wow. Okay. Desire to be liked.
Where do we go from there?
Yeah. And maybe I'll just leave that to you, because I I'm not about to get it tattooed on my arm, but maybe like put on my wall or the closet that I look at every morning. Liked, desire to be liked, desire to be affirmed, desire to be seen as good, desire to be loved. Help us just unpack that. What should we take away from it?
Sure. So some of this, the context for this is thinking about Pieper's "Only the Lover Sings," a beautiful essay that he has, and in it he describes contemplation in a way that I have found most attractive, and he defines contemplation as observing lovingly, basically, right? Observing reality lovingly, not judgmentally, not critically, not inquisitively, but lovingly. And I think that the basis for this is we have to contemplate our mentees. We have to contemplate our children. You have to contemplate that. You have to observe them lovingly. At the bottom, like every child wants to be loved. Every child wants to be loved. Every human being wants to be loved. It's part of our nature. But especially a child that is just beginning to awaken to the idea of relationship and love and loving and life, it's yearning to be loved. And for him to be loved means that he has to know that he's liked. Because we can't separate, and a kid can't separate to be liked from to be loved. If you never want to be with him, if you never enjoy his conversation, if you never actually, if you tell him to shut up all the time, if you tell him that, he's got to clean up, that he's disgusting all the time, and then you tell him, but I love you so much, he's going to have a hard time believing it, right? Because what he knows is, yeah, but I don't think you like me. And it's amazing how often kids will complain about somebody saying, well, he doesn't like me. They may be right, they may be wrong. And often they are wrong. But that's just what they're reading, because they're very sensitive to being liked. And so if we observe him lovingly, if we actually love him, that means that he will feel loved by you, right? By parents. He'll feel loved. Once he feels loved, he will feel himself lovable. That is, if this person whom I admire loves me, means that I'm actually lovable. That there's something about me that somebody like this person loves. That is an incredibly powerful armor, right? For that kid, for that boy, right? To feel that I am lovable, because once that I am lovable, it means that I can love myself, that I am good. The result of that, and this is the real work of formation, I believe, the result of that is that once the kid feels loved and therefore lovable, and he can love himself, that leads to gratitude. I am grateful for the people in my life. I am grateful to be alive. I am grateful to be. And I think that the natural output of gratefulness is service and prayer. So sometimes we wonder, like, how can we get young people to serve more? Maybe we should have service hours. Maybe we should mandate service. All for that. I think going through that experience is great. The actual answer to how to get a young person to serve more is getting that young person to love himself and to know that he's loved and lovable. Then he will serve. Because very often, right, I mean, a young person is not going to serve either because he just doesn't see the need or because he doesn't think that he's good enough to provide for the need. And most young people, I think, have a very low self-esteem, right? Yeah. They just don't think they're that good, that they have that much to offer. If they're loved, then service will come. And if they're loved and they can love themselves, then prayer is easier. Because very often we don't pray well because we're ashamed to go face-to-face with Christ. You know, we just don't, we just think ourselves too dirty to be there. You know, we don't want to be exposed. So we'd rather just keep busy, right, and distracted. So that's what is behind that statement, right? That we can actually unlock a child by loving the boy, by loving the girl in a way that he or she feels loved, knows himself, herself to be lovable, and therefore to be good, and therefore has something to give, right, in service and prayer.
It's marvelous. My favorite teacher once said, "You have to love your neighbor as you love yourself." I think sometimes.
I think he knew what he was saying, didn't he?
I think he knew a thing or two about what I was going through at the time and now and always. But yeah, I think we just sort of flip it into an obligation to be kind to those around us, which is good, right? Obviously, but I think this helps me understand, and what you just said helps me understand better as you love yourself, you got to love yourself too.
Yes. And
what that means, not in an egotistical sense, but in a way that's rooted in gratitude.
Exactly.
It's remarkable. And okay, so then one of the challenges is that oftentimes we're drawn to a desire for these meaningful conversations precisely by what you're talking about, which is, in essence, there's a problem that needs to be fixed.
Right.
There's a behavior that you don't like. There's a phone call you got from a teacher. There's a relationship that's just not in a good place or healthy. There are patterns of personal conduct or hygiene that desperately are clamoring for attention.
For the common good.
Yeah, for the common good. Right. For your good and the good of your neighbor. And so and really I'd love to just enter the paradigm of the parent in a deeper way here, because it seems like in those moments, it's really hard to do what you're talking about when there actually is something to be addressed. And so how do you walk this line between not trying to be overly didactic, overpreach, those sorts of things, but at the same time, Joe Cardenas, our colleague and head of mentoring here, has spoken about how sometimes our guys need some scaffolding.
Right.
They need some guardrails. If you've got a boy that's really struggling with his studies, and sometimes, gosh, maybe like mom or dad sit down and work with him for a little bit so he kind of flexes that muscle. So then how do you have these, let's see, too many questions. Is that a mentoring conversation where you're like, son, whatever's going on, we have to change this about it. Is that a mentoring conversation? And if so, how do you engage it in a way that you avoid some of these issues that you're talking about while also providing the scaffolding or the fix or whatever else your child needs?
Yes. Yeah. So first is, yes, absolutely, it's a mentoring conversation.
Okay.
I would say that everything is a mentoring conversation again, right? You can't separate correcting from mentoring.
You can't be like, okay, I'm going to parent now, so here's how it is.
Right. No, you can't do that. You can't say, listen, I'm not your mentor now. I'm basically your enforcer or disciplinarian. Everything is a mentoring conversation, right? And boys know that. I mean, they know that this is all part of the whole package, right? I had a boy recently. We're talking about something, and he made a comment, and I made a comment back, and he thought that my comment was critical of what he had said, right? So he said, what do you mean? And I explained it, and he said, "Oh, I thought you were saying that I was wrong, because." And he said, "Because please, do tell me if I'm wrong, right? And do tell me if I'm wrong. Like I'm counting you to tell me if I'm wrong." Is I think what he said. I said, "Oh no, don't worry about that. Like I'll tell you if you're wrong, but you weren't. You were right. Yeah. You were. I'm agreeing with you. It's just that I didn't, I wasn't clear in the way that I was communicating that. So yeah, it is a mentoring conversation, and it has to be, and they want it, right? They want to be mentored. So, and I agree. There's sometimes when the call from school or whatever it might be, there is an issue to be addressed, and you can't say, well, over the next 3 months we'll work on this, because the boy may need to change his behavior tomorrow to go back to that class, right? So I think what happens here is that we can very easily jump into the fixing mode and providing the answer. And every good mentor has to first make sure that is considering the same question as the mentee. So I think the issue is not so much that we shouldn't provide an answer, is that we provide the answer before the mentee has the question. And therefore, that answer doesn't have a place to fall. So, think about the answer as the water and the question as the glass. Very often what we do is we get the call from the school or whatever issue it is, and we want to pour the water. But it's going nowhere, right? The first thing we have to do is, okay, so let's grab a glass, right? And once he has the glass, and he believes in a glass, then you can provide. You can pour the water. So I think that a lot of the conversation is not so much providing the answer, is agreeing as to what the question is, right? What is the issue that we're trying to solve? So it may require asking him, hey, listen, I got a call from school and from this teacher, and he mentioned that this happened, but what happened, right? Are you sure? Why do you do that? Not critic. I'm just trying to understand, like, what's the context, right? Are your friends laughing when you say that? Like, okay, try to get to the point where he agrees, okay, yeah, here's the problem, or here's the question. Because once you get to that point, I think the rest of the conversation is very quick. Like, all right, so what should we do about it? Most of the time, that is my experience, most of the time, they come up with the answer. And they come up with an answer that is better than what I would have suggested. That is even more practical, more realistic, right? Or they get to the point where they say, I don't know, what should I do? Okay, now you can start providing ideas, right? Like, maybe try this or try that, or do you think you could do this thing here? So, I think that's the line that we walk, right? It's not avoiding the issue, but it's actually not rushing it to the point where I'm providing an answer to a question that he doesn't have, or that he doesn't agree with, right? I'm just wasting that water. Let's make sure that he's got the container, that he's got the glass first.
Yeah, and I mean, there are going to be moments, right, where I think of phones here where there's certain issues that exceed the capacity of the child's intellect and will. And so there are moments where, as a parent, thinking of a baby that wants to reach out and touch a stove or whatever. There's so many different examples, but you get up to older children, older even young adults sometimes, and you might hit a moment where it's like, we're going to turn the router off at night.
Right.
Or, no, I'm sorry, you can't have the phone in your room. Like that.
Right.
What you're saying is not that as parents we can sort of stop drawing lines.
Not at all.
But it's just about how we.
Exactly. Yeah, and draw the lines, and frankly, because so much of it is also trust, right? Does my child trust me? And the answer is yes. Really? Maybe. Right, in different ways, because it's not that doesn't trust you in anything. Is that, man, when he wants something really badly, like the phone in the room, does he trust that he's going to be happier and better if he doesn't have the phone in the room just because you tell him? I don't know, right? I gotta I don't want to pay that price. So there may be moments when yeah, absolutely, you have to tell the kid, no, don't reach for the stove. As a matter of fact, I'm going to move the chair so you can't get there. Or I'm going to turn off the router. Or there's no way you're having the phone.
Yeah.
In your room or a phone, period. Whatever. I think there are times when you have to do that, even if they don't agree with it. Well, at the same time, you try to get them to see the question, right? What is the problem that I'm addressing, right? But sometimes boys can become unreasonable. Can you believe that?
You heard it here first, folks.
Big discovery, breaking news. Right? Sometimes boys can become unreasonable.
Totally.
It's
so good to think about, though.
Yeah, they're arguing with you.
Come on.
And you know that they have no interest in the truth. Their only interest is to get you to say yes.
Yeah.
And they keep bringing up all kinds of arguments. I mean, they start mildly with "I want it," and then there's like the nuclear options, like "I have no friends, you are ruining my childhood. Yep. Everyone else is doing it. You're the worst father ever." All right, but at that point you realize, well, this is not a conversation anymore, right? Yeah. Because it's not open.
Yeah.
Right. And it may be in those cases, since there's no conversation, you go, all right, you know what? This is really not helpful at all. So, as a matter of fact, because I can see that you're not even thinking through this, you're just throwing things at me. You're not gonna get that phone. You're not gonna do that thing you want to do, and we're not gonna talk about it for a month. As a matter of fact, if you bring it up, I'm gonna add a week every time that you bring it up. In a month, we'll have a conversation. Right. I mean, you may have to do.
So good.
You may have to do some things like that just to, again, the guardrails.
Yeah.
Right. But a lot of the other times, I think, is a question of not trying to fix a problem right away.
Yeah.
Right. And if we have the time, if it doesn't have to be solved for like right now, I think it behooves us to create situations where we talk with the kids in a way that they share the same questions that we have. Yeah. And then we're looking for a solution together.
That's awesome. Fantastic. Goodness. I have so many more things I want to ask. And maybe I'll one of the last temptations that you encourage us to be aware of, it's kind of like a closing comment. And so maybe I'll just invite, whatever closing thoughts you have for us. But it's sort of an overarching comment of don't look to have transformational conversations.
Right.
Don't try to have these big life-changing moments in the life of your mentee. It's a huge statement, and so maybe just as a parting words of wisdom, what do we take from that, and what do you want us to carry forward?
I think for that, what I would say is that formation is a game of inches. Right?
Yeah.
It's a game of inches. Don't go for the Hail Mary pass. Like, assume that you are winning by 3 with 10 minutes to go. Like, don't go for the Hail Mary pass. Don't go for the long ball. Like, it's a game of inches. Like, getting 3 yards is good.
Yeah.
Right? Formation is a game of inches. Don't look for conversations that are going to be transformational. 1 is they become too artificial. 2, we become too disappointed when they don't seem to have the effect. 3, very often they cannot be transformational because formation is shaping an individual. And shaping an individual means that the individual, the boy, has to want to be shaped. And it takes time to develop habit and virtue and avoid vice. So transformational conversations, it's a game of inches.
Yeah.
Little by little.
I love that. That's a great metaphor here during the football season that
That's right.
we're enjoying here as diehard Commanders fans. But beautiful. Alvaro, this is wonderful. Thank you very, very much.
Great. Thank you, Rich.
And thank you all for listening. If you'd like to just read the whole piece and hear more about what's going on, always feel free to visit heightsforum.org. Also check out the Headmaster's Substack page. We post those articles on the forum every other week on Tuesdays, or you can subscribe on Substack. So a lot of good stuff happening. Thank you for listening. While you're on the forum, also do consider supporting us financially. Everything you do is incredibly appreciated. And do consider joining us for Convivium. I do believe that's going to sell out in short order. So if you'd like to join us, please do register. We would love to have you here. Thank you once again for listening. We'll talk to you next week.